Welcome to Night Stories from VHS Era. You've arrived at a place where the glow of old television screens, the hum of rewinding tapes, and the softness of forgotten childhood dreams come alive once more. Each night will take a quiet journey back in time to sleepy suburbs, moonlit driveways, warm summer breezes, and the kind of memories that feel just a little too magical to be real. Here you don't need to worry. Just press play and let the night unfold.
Have you ever felt like a superstar just by putting on a piece of clothing? Do you remember what it was like to walk through the mall and spot that one jacket, bright as a highlighter, loud as your favorite mixtape, and feel like it was made just for you? Did you ever open your closet and see colors that could wake up a rainy day? Stay with me until the end of this video, because tonight you'll remember how it felt to pick out that perfect neon windbreaker and strut through the 90s like you were walking a red carpet in your own school hallway. By the end, you'll know exactly why those colors meant so much, and why, even now, they still live in your heart. So get cozy, turn down the lights, and let's go back to when fashion wasn't just about what you wore, it was about how you felt. It was the fall of 1993 when I first felt it. That little electric buzz in my chest that only came when something big was about to happen. I was sitting cross-legged on the carpeted floor of my room, my cassette player humming quietly beside me. TLC's Ain't Too Proud to Beg was playing, maybe for the 15th time that day. I had my Teen Beat magazine spread out all around me like a rainbow quilt made of glossy paper and dreams. I remember looking at one of the pages, a full spread of Marky Mark, in this oversized neon green windbreaker, the kind that had a zipper that sparkled like candy foil under studio lights. The fabric looked slick, like it could catch wind and make you fly. The lining peeked out in hot pink, and there was this tiny blue triangle on the chest with a lightning bolt running through it. I wanted that jacket. Not just to wear it, no. I wanted to be it. Do you know that feeling? That feeling of seeing something so loud, so full of attitude, that you could already hear the swoosh it would make as you walked? Could already imagine the sideways glances in the cafeteria? My mom agreed to take me to the mall that Saturday. That meant one thing: Montgomery Ward, and the dream of walking past those towering racks filled with windbreakers, each one louder than the last. The air inside the store always smelled the same, like new denim, shoe polish, and plastic packaging. I loved that smell. It meant possibilities. I ran my fingers over the sleeves as we walked by. Some were glossy, some matte, all colorful like melted Skittles. And then I saw it. My jacket. A neon turquoise masterpiece with electric orange stripes running down the arms and a white zipper that looked like it belonged on a spaceship. The brand was Bugle Boy. Remember Bugle Boy? That triangle logo with the little swirl in the center? Felt like a badge of honor. I reached out and zipped it halfway, the fabric making that unforgettable shh sound. My mom laughed when she saw my face. She said, "Looks like we found a winner." Was I shy? No, not in that jacket. I walked through the mall like I had theme music. I passed the food court where kids were sharing fries from Sparrow trays, and I swear someone turned to look. Maybe they didn't. Maybe it was in my head, but I felt it. I was someone in that jacket. I was color and speed and cool all rolled into one. It didn't matter that I was just a middle school kid with braces and a bowl cut. In that windbreaker, I felt like I could be on Nickelodeon, getting slimed after winning Guts. I even practiced a few slow-motion turns in the mirror when I got home, just to see the sleeves puff out. The first day I wore it to school, I got stopped in the hallway by someone I didn't even know. Cool jacket. That was it. 2 words, but they stuck. Do you remember getting a compliment like that in school? How it felt like the sun breaking through clouds on a test day? And those jackets weren't just about looks, they were practical too. Light enough to stuff into your backpack, perfect for those chilly mornings waiting for the bus. And if you were lucky, the inside had mesh that made you feel like an athlete. We didn't care if we were just heading to PE, we looked like we were training for the Olympics. I'd wear it while watching Snick on Saturday nights, curled up with a bowl of popcorn and my little brother, both of us in matching neon. We looked like glow sticks that hadn't been cracked yet. Do you remember the way the colors seemed to come alive under fluorescent lights? Or how, at sleepovers, someone always had a windbreaker that glowed almost alien green when we turned on the black light? I still have that jacket. It's buried somewhere in a box in the attic, but I like knowing it's there. Like a photograph you don't need to look at to remember. Sometimes I close my eyes, and I can hear the swoosh of the sleeves, the static crackle when I pulled it off over my head, and the way it always smelled faintly of strawberry bubble gum and fresh laundry. You don't forget that feeling, the feeling of color on your skin, of being too bright to ignore, even if it was just for one hallway, one lunch period, one after-school walk home. So yes, when people ask if fashion really mattered in the 90s, I tell them it did. Because when you're a kid, sometimes a neon windbreaker isn't just a jacket. Sometimes it's a spotlight, a second skin, a promise that you can be anything, even a star. And now, as I lie here telling you this, with only the hum of the fan and a world gone quieter than it used to be, I think of that jacket, of those colors, of that strange and beautiful decade where being bold was as easy as zipping up and stepping out. Do I miss it? Of course. But it's a good kind of missing, the kind that leaves you smiling in the dark.
I think it started around the time Nevermind landed on every shelf at Sam Goody, and suddenly the world felt heavier, but cooler. We didn't have a name for it yet. All we knew was that something was shifting. Bright neon slowly gave way to darker tones, moodier textures, and that unmistakable flannel feel that hugged you like a rainy afternoon soundtrack. I was about 12 or maybe 13, the kind of age where everything feels important, but you don't know why yet. I'd just outgrown most of my neon windbreakers, though I still kept one in the closet just in case. By now, the posters on my wall had changed. Vanilla Ice came down, and Eddie Vedder went up. The mall still played pop music in the food court, but if you walked past Hot Topic, you could hear distorted guitars bleeding out from the speakers like an open wound that somehow felt safe. Have you ever felt like what you wore helped you figure out who you were becoming? Like your clothes weren't just choices, but quiet declarations of identity? I remember my first flannel shirt. It was red and black with hints of navy, soft and oversized, like it had lived through stories before I ever put it on. I found it at a thrift shop downtown, hidden between some old suit jackets and someone's discarded denim vest. It smelled faintly of cedar, like it had been stored in a chest with mothballs and secrets. I didn't even try it on. I just knew. I brought it home, laid it out on my bed, and stared at it like it might start talking. I pulled out my favorite tee, an old gray shirt with a faded Jurassic Park logo on the chest, and slipped it on. Then I layered the flannel over it, buttoning just one or two in the middle and letting the rest hang loose. That was the rule. You never buttoned the whole thing. It had to look like you just threw it on, even if you'd spent 15 minutes folding the sleeves just right. We didn't have TikTok tutorials. We had intuition and MTV. I wore that outfit to school the next Monday, walking into homeroom with my backpack slung over one shoulder and Nirvana lyrics still rattling around in my head. No one said anything right away, but I could tell. The nods, the side glances, the way a classmate I barely spoke to looked at my shirt, then looked at me and gave this tiny approving smile. That was all I needed. Do you remember the feeling of belonging even when no one said a word out loud? Before long, flannel became my uniform. I had 3 by the end of the month. One green and brown with pearl snap buttons, another one that used to be my uncle's, faded blue and soft like a lullaby. I wore them over band tees, cartoon tees, whatever I had. Some days I paired them with cargo pants that had way too many pockets. Other days with jeans that were just beginning to fray at the knees. We didn't buy distressed jeans yet. We earned our rips one fall at a time, one skateboarding mishap after another. What made flannel so powerful? Was it the texture? The color? Or was it what it said without needing to shout? Maybe it was the way it felt like armor. Not hard like metal, but familiar. Something that said, I don't need to try too hard. Even if, secretly, we all were trying hard. We wanted to look like we didn't care. That was the irony. We cared a lot about looking like we didn't. After school, we'd meet at the arcade or at a friend's house. We'd sit cross-legged on the carpet, the warmth of our flannels cocooning us as the PlayStation hummed and pixelated fire crackled on screen. I can still picture it. 3 of us sharing a bag of Doritos, our shirts looking like they were made from the same batch of fabric. Plaid was everywhere, a patchwork of personality stitched across our backs. Do you remember the sound flannel made when you leaned back against the floor? That quiet rustle as the sleeves bunched at your elbows. It was so small, but I swear I can still hear it sometimes when I close my eyes. Even at night when I'd lie in bed listening to late-night radio, I'd still be in that shirt. I never wanted to take it off. It had become a part of me, like a second skin. It smelled like school hallways and pencil shavings, like the microwave popcorn we burned every Friday, and the faint musk of CK1 someone sprayed in the locker room and that never quite left the air. And we weren't alone. Even the TV shows started to reflect us. Corey Matthews wore flannel. Clarissa wore flannel. Even Steve from Blue's Clues had his version of plaid. It was everywhere, and no one questioned it. Did we know we were part of something bigger? That our small-town attempts at grunge were connected to a larger movement happening in cities we hadn't even visited yet? I think some part of us did. We might not have known the word aesthetic, but we understood vibe. And flannel was a whole vibe. It was rebellion, comfort, and cool, all rolled into one. It was the closest we came to a school-approved middle finger. We wore it to birthday parties and sleepovers, to the mall and to the movies. I remember seeing The Craft for the first time at the Regal Cinema, all of us lined up in plaid shirts, chewing sour straws, and pretending not to be scared. And when fall came again, bringing colder air and shorter days, I reached for that same red and black flannel. It had faded just a bit. The elbows were getting thin, but it still fit, and it still mattered. That's the thing about fashion in the 90s. It didn't just change how we looked, it helped us understand ourselves. It gave us a way to say something, even when we were too shy to speak it out loud. So, yes, layering flannel over graphic tees felt like a uniform. Not because someone told us to wear it, but because it told the world who we were, or at least who we hoped to become. And sometimes, when the house is quiet and the night feels long, I still imagine that soft, familiar fabric brushing my arms. I remember the way it made me feel, like I belonged, like I was seen, like I was exactly where I was supposed to be.
There are some memories so vivid that they don't feel like memories at all. They feel like scenes you could step back into, with the same air, the same smells, the same buzz of fluorescent hallway lights humming above your head. For me, one of those memories begins with a pair of denim overalls and the bold decision to wear them with only one strap fastened. It sounds simple now, silly even, but back then, that undone strap was everything. I still remember the first time I noticed it. I was sitting at the lunch table across from this kid named Evan. He was the kind of kid who always seemed to be one step ahead, knew the lyrics before the rest of us did, got the newest trading cards before they hit the shelves, and never got caught chewing gum in class. He walked into the cafeteria with a bag of Cool Ranch Doritos in one hand and confidence in the other. His overalls were faded, probably Oshkosh, with a white t-shirt underneath and just one strap clipped across his chest. The other strap, just hanging. How could something so small make someone seem so cool? From that day on, I saw it everywhere. Recess was a fashion show we didn't know we were putting on, and overalls were the uniform. Some wore them with bright striped shirts, others with solid colors, and almost all of us had made the same silent agreement: one strap down, always. Did you ever try to copy a trend without fully understanding why it worked? That weekend, I begged my mom to take me to JCPenney. We browsed through racks until I found the perfect pair: medium wash denim, thick metal clasps, a roomy front pocket where I imagined I'd keep gum, notes, maybe even a tiny notepad like the ones detectives had in cartoons. I carried them to the checkout like treasure. The first time I wore them to school, I was nervous. I stood in front of the mirror with both straps fastened. It looked fine, safe. But then I unhooked one. Just let it fall. And suddenly it was different, edgier, effortless. I turned to the side, imagining how it would look in the hallway, walking past the lockers with a slow swagger I hadn't yet mastered. "Are you going to school or to a hip-hop video shoot?" my older cousin teased when he saw me. "Maybe both," I answered, trying to sound cooler than I felt. Because whether we admitted it or not, hip-hop culture was everywhere. We saw it in music videos, in dance shows, in the way our favorite sitcom characters dressed. Will Smith on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was basically the blueprint for how we wanted to look. Baggy jeans, colorful shirts, sneakers that still look new 3 months in, and yes, overalls with one strap undone. At school, my look didn't go unnoticed. One kid pointed and said, "Nice, just like the guys on TV." Another asked where I got them. That was all the validation I needed. From that moment on, I wore them like armor, denim armor. I felt taller, faster, maybe even a little funnier. They jingled slightly when I walked, metal brushing against metal with every step. The undone strap flopped behind me when I ran, like a cape too short to be heroic, but just long enough to matter. Do you remember how recess felt in the 90s? Like the whole world stopped for 20 minutes just to let you be you? We'd race to the monkey bars, the swings, or our favorite patch of sidewalk for trading cards and heated arguments about which Power Ranger was the best. The overalls were never in the way. In fact, they felt like they helped us move better, like we had more room to jump, twist, run. They weren't just clothes. They were built for adventure. And then there were the little things we did to personalize them. Some of us pinned buttons to the chest pocket, cartoon characters, smiley faces, phrases like whatever or rad. Others tucked keychains through the belt loops or scribbled initials on the inside with Sharpies we weren't supposed to have. I remember sitting in the back of the classroom, one leg bouncing as I doodled on the inside hem of my overalls, hearts, lightning bolts, maybe even my crush's initials. It felt like a secret. Something only I knew was there, pressed against my leg all day like a hidden message. Do you remember the sound of sitting down on a plastic chair with overalls on? That creaky pull as the denim bent and tugged, the faint clink of the clasps brushing against the desk as you leaned forward? I do. I remember it vividly. There was something so wonderfully unbothered about wearing them. They were never tight. They never pinched. They allowed space for breath, for growth, for movement. And when the school day ended and we all spilled out into the sun, our undone straps swinging behind us like little flags of individuality, we felt untouchable. I had a few different pairs. One was light wash with patches, stars, and peace signs my mom ironed on for me. Another pair had paint stains from art class that never quite came out, and I didn't mind. They gave the fabric personality, a story. And I wasn't alone. Everyone was doing it. Girls wore them over floral tees or even with crop tops layered under. Some wore them as shorts in warmer months, others with thermals underneath in winter. We'd see overalls in yearbook photos, class field trips, holiday concerts. The one-strap trend wasn't just cool, it was universal. Did we think it would last forever? Maybe not, but we sure lived like it would. Eventually, the trend faded. We started trading denim for cargo, flannel for fleece, overalls for zip-ups. But I never forgot the feeling. The pure,
unfiltered joy of putting on something that made you feel like you had a place in the world, even if it was just the second lunch table by the window. I still have those overalls somewhere. The fabric's probably stiffer now, the color's faded, but if I were to put them on again and leave one strap undone, I think I'd remember exactly how I felt back then. Brave in the smallest way, free in a way I didn't know how to name. So yes, it was just a strap, just a tiny piece of metal left unhooked. But on those playgrounds and in those hallways, it meant everything.
The mall was more than just a place to shop in the 90s. It was a sanctuary, a stage, a second home where weekends came to life in the flicker of neon signs and the soft squeak of sneakers on tiled floors. I can still hear the echo of voices bouncing off glass storefronts, smell the mix of soft pretzels and new shoes, and feel the buzz in my chest every time we rode the escalator up to the second floor. That feeling? It wasn't just about going somewhere. It was about becoming someone. Do you remember what it felt like to walk into a store and lock eyes with something that had a Starter or Nike logo on it? It didn't matter what it was exactly. A windbreaker, a snapback, a pair of shorts. If it had that logo stitched onto it, it became instantly more powerful, more magnetic. In a world where we were all trying to find our place, those tiny embroidered symbols felt like badges of belonging. I used to tug on my mom's sleeve the minute we passed by Champs or Foot Locker. Just to look, I'd say, already walking ahead as if she'd said yes. Sometimes she would sigh and follow. Sometimes she'd say we didn't have time. But most days, she'd humor me, because she knew that to a kid growing up in the 90s, seeing the new drop from Starter was like watching a rocket launch. Inside the store, everything was glossy and bold. Jackets lined the walls in deep purples, electric blues, and jet blacks. Some had giant team logos stitched across the back: Chicago Bulls, Charlotte Hornets, Orlando Magic. Names I'd only ever heard during halftime recaps or on trading cards, but they still meant something. You didn't have to know the stats. You just had to wear the jacket. And then there was Nike. That little swoosh, simple, perfect, was enough to make any kid feel like they could jump higher, run faster, dream bigger. I'd drift toward the wall of sneakers, touching them gently, pretending I could already feel the difference they'd make. Some had air pockets so clear you could see through them. Others glowed with neon outlines or looked like they came from the future. "Can I get these?" I'd ask, holding up a pair of Nike Air Raids or Air Max 95s. My mom would look at the price tag, then at me, then at the tag again. "We'll see," she'd say. That was mom code for maybe, but probably not. Still, I clung to that maybe like it was a golden ticket. It wasn't about the brand in a shallow way. It wasn't about showing off. It was about feeling like you belonged to something bigger. Wearing a Starter jacket or Nike hoodie meant you understood something, that you were tuned in to a frequency your classmates also listened to. It gave you a kind of invisible confidence, like you were part of the club without needing to say a word. Do you remember how carefully you'd plan your mall outfit, even just to walk around? I'd put on my cleanest graphic tee, layer it under my favorite flannel, lace up my sneakers just right, and throw on a backwards cap for good measure. It wasn't just about buying something. It was about being seen. The food court was a catwalk. Orange Julius in one hand, bag from Sam Goody in the other, nodding at kids from school like we were all in on the same secret.
The day I finally got my own Starter jacket felt like winning the lottery. I had saved a birthday money, Christmas cash from aunts and uncles, a few bucks from mowing lawns, and I still came up short. My mom saw the look in my eyes, the look of a kid who had imagined himself walking into school wearing that black and red Chicago Bulls jacket more times than he could count. She pulled out her checkbook, scribbled a number, and said, "Consider this an early birthday gift." I must have hugged her 4 times that day. That night, I laid the jacket across my bed like it was too precious to hang. I touched the stitching gently, read every label, traced the logo with my finger. I didn't even want to sleep on it, afraid I'd ruin it somehow. It was more than just a piece of clothing. It was a promise that when I walked into school the next day, something would be different. And it was. The moment I stepped onto the schoolyard, heads turned, a few kids whistled, one said, "Yo, where'd you get that?" And I shrugged like it was no big deal, even though my heart was thumping so loud I could hear it in my ears. That jacket gave me something no report card ever could. It gave me status. Not the kind adults measure, but the kind that matters when you're 10 and trying to figure out who you are. Did we care about the fabric, the fit? Not really. We cared about the logo, that little symbol on your chest or sleeve or cap that told the world you were paying attention, that you were part of the culture. Starter, Nike, Fila, Reebok, these weren't just brands. They were languages we spoke through our clothes. And when we didn't have them, we improvised. Some kids wore knockoffs from the flea market or got hand-me-downs from older siblings. I remember a friend of mine drawing a swoosh on his plain sneakers with a silver marker. It didn't matter if it was real. What mattered was that it felt real. We'd walk through the mall past KB Toys, Suncoast Video, and Walden Books, our minds already plotting what logo we'd aim for next. Maybe it would be a windbreaker in Miami Dolphins colors, even if you'd never watched a game in your life. Maybe it would be a pair of Nike socks, just long enough to show when you sat in homeroom, a little whisper of cool beneath your jeans. And when we finally got something with that magic logo, we'd wear it every day. Even when it was too hot for a jacket, even when your mom said, "You wore that yesterday." It didn't matter. You felt like a star. So yes, it wasn't always about the clothing itself. It was about the symbol, the feeling, the quiet confidence that came from knowing you were part of something. Even if it was just for a season, just for a school year, just until the next logo trend came along. Even now, when I walk through a store and see that familiar swoosh or the bold starter star, something tugs at me. A memory, a warmth, a flicker of who I was and who I still carry with me. Because some things never leave you. Not really. And the way we felt walking out of the mall, bag in hand, logo shining, dreams unfolding, well, that's one of those things.
There was something beautifully unspoken about friendship in the 90s, especially when it came to how we dressed. It wasn't just a reflection of style, it was a quiet agreement, a shared language we all understood without needing to say much. Looking back, I realized we dressed as if we were part of a cast, our own little sitcom that only aired during lunch breaks and weekend sleepovers. Do you remember that one friend who always wore too much neon? Or the one who had an endless rotation of denim jackets? What about the one who always looked effortlessly cool in flannel, like they stepped out of a teen drama on TV? In our group, we didn't plan it out exactly. It just happened. Somewhere between skate videos and reruns of Saved by the Bell, we started dressing like a unit. Not the same outfit exactly, but complementary, like pieces of a puzzle or characters from Boy Meets World. Everyone had a role, even if we didn't know we were playing one. There was Jamal, who was always the radical one. He had this crazy way of mixing his prints: camo shorts with a tie-dye tee, a backwards cap that never matched his shoes, and a Walkman always clipped to his belt loop, playing something loud. Somehow it worked. He walked like the pavement moved for him. He had that kind of wild confidence that made you believe the weirdest combination of colors actually made sense. Then there was Tasha, who could have passed for a backup dancer in a music video. She was bold. Shiny leggings, crop starter jackets, big hoops, and high ponytails that bounced when she laughed. She loved matching sets, purple and lime green, hot pink and electric blue, and she always had bubble gum or glitter lip gloss in her fanny pack. You could spot her from across the schoolyard. Kevin, our quiet one, always leaned into the grunge look. Oversized flannel over a faded band tee, black jeans with a wallet chain, and beat-up Converse that had seen too many puddles. He didn't talk much, but when he did, it was worth stopping to listen. He was the one who introduced us to Nirvana and sketchbooks. His clothes looked effortless, like he'd just woken up and thrown something on. And yet, somehow, he looked the coolest out of all of us. And then there was me, somewhere in the middle. A little color here, a little attitude there. I wore overalls with one strap undone because that's what we all agreed was cool, but I liked mixing them with graphic tees that had cartoon characters or movie logos, stuff I picked up from the mall or the local flea market. I was trying to balance between Kevin's laid-back style and Tasha's loud statements. Not too wild, not too dull. Just enough to belong. We didn't sit around deciding these things. It was more like a vibe, unspoken, intuitive, a reflection of all the TV shows we devoured, the music videos we memorized, the posters on our bedroom walls. And when we'd show up somewhere all together, maybe walking into the skating rink or piling into a photo booth at the arcade, we really did look like a sitcom cast.
Have you ever felt that moment where someone sees your group and smiles? Like they're watching the pilot episode of a show they instantly want to keep watching? That's how it felt when we walked into the food court or the roller rink lobby. Heads would turn just a little. Not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet nod of appreciation. Like, yeah, they've got something going on. It wasn't just the outfits. It was the energy, the way we moved together like pages from a magazine come to life. Sometimes we even coordinated on purpose. Fridays were unofficial match days. Jamal would call and say, "I'm doing the Bulls jacket," and that was the cue. Kevin might dig out his black and red flannel. Tasha would find a matching scrunchie. I'd throw on a Chicago cap, even if I didn't know much about basketball. It wasn't about the sport. It was about the team spirit, our team. I remember one Saturday we all showed up wearing denim. Not just jeans. We're talking full-on denim energy. Jackets, vests, shorts, skirts, all different shades of blue, all frayed at the edges. We didn't even plan it that time. It just happened. And when we looked at each other, we cracked up, laughing so hard we had to sit down on the curb outside the movie theater. A family passed by and said, "You kids look like something out of Full House." That was the best compliment anyone could have given us. Did we feel like stars? In our own way, absolutely. But not in a flashy, look-at-me kind of way. More like we knew we were part of something special. Each of us brought our piece to the style puzzle. Each of us represented a part of that decade's heart. And together, we were a walking, talking, laughing time capsule of the 90s. Sometimes, one of us would try something new, a little outside the box. Like the time Tasha showed up in platform sneakers, or when Jamal tied his hoodie around his chest instead of his waist. We'd tease a little, sure, but mostly we'd be curious. By the end of the day, someone else would be trying the same thing. Trends spread like that back then, through friends, through play, through courage, through trial and error. Not through screens or likes or filters, just through the simple act of walking to school with someone and saying, "Cool jacket," or "Where'd you get that?" And even now, when I flip through old photo albums or dig into that box in the attic marked 90s, I find those snapshots, the ones with all of us standing shoulder to shoulder. Denim, flannel, neon, sneakers with fat tongues, smiles that don't feel posed, eyes that sparkle with mischief and energy, and outfits that speak louder than words. Matching was never really about the clothes. It was about identity, about connection, about that sweet, indescribable magic of feeling like you belong to something bigger than yourself. So yes, we did look like a 90s sitcom cast. And maybe, just maybe, we were one. In our own quiet, funny, stylish way.
There was a time so vivid in my mind that we believed more really was more. We didn't layer for warmth, not exactly. We layered for flair, for fun, for the joy of hearing that satisfying snap of a slap bracelet curling around your wrist at the exact right angle. And somehow, we always managed to wear it all at once, without questioning if it was too much. Because back then, it never was.
Do you remember how it felt to walk down the school hallway with a rainbow of scrunchies up your arm, a slap bracelet on each wrist, and a mood ring that shifted colors depending on whether you were feeling calm or in love? Mood rings felt like magic. You'd stare at them between classes, waiting for the stone to change color. We'd huddle over one another's fingers like little scientists decoding emotional secrets. Mine always hovered somewhere between green and blue, normal and happy, according to the tiny chart that came folded inside the box. But Tasha's, hers was always purple. She'd grin and say, "That means I'm passionate," like she understood something deeper than the rest of us. Slap bracelets were pure joy. Remember the sound they made? That soft metallic thwop as the strip of fabric-covered steel snapped perfectly around your wrist. They came in neon lightning bolts, leopard print, holographic zigzags, and even those weird squiggly patterns that look like static on a TV screen. Everyone had at least one, and if you didn't, you borrowed someone's during lunch or traded for it during recess with a pack of Gushers or a shiny sticker. I had one that looked like flames, red and orange, licking up from a yellow base. I wore it until the fabric frayed and the steel beneath started poking out the sides. My mom kept trying to throw it away, but I'd always rescue it from the trash, tuck it back in my pencil box, like it was a secret artifact from a time when being cool meant your bracelet snapped clean. And scrunchies? Ugh, the scrunchies. We wore them like they were made of gold, in our hair, on our wrists, sometimes even looped through a belt loop just because we could. Velvet ones, metallic ones, tie-dye ones that matched our Lisa Frank folders. Tasha had a pouch full of them, a rainbow explosion of elastic and fabric. She was the queen of scrunchie coordination. One time, she wore 3 in a high ponytail, one at the base, one in the middle, and one at the tip. We were mesmerized. Have you ever tried to explain scrunchie logic to someone from another era? You can't. It just made sense at the time. Scrunchies were power. Scrunchies were mood. They said, "I tried, but not too hard." They matched your windbreaker, your mood ring, even your shoelaces if you were really committed. And when a friend let you borrow one, it meant something. It wasn't just hair support. It was a small sign of trust, a fashion bond sealed in cotton or satin. And then there was the stacking. We didn't stop at one mood ring. No, we wore 3, sometimes 4. Different fingers, different vibes. And when we held our hands up to admire them, it was like staring into a tiny universe of feelings.
One might say tense, another romantic, and we'd laugh, trying to figure out what romantic even meant when your biggest crush was the kid who sat 2 rows over in math class and wore the same Bugs Bunny shirt every Tuesday. There was something wildly freeing about dressing that way. It wasn't about matching or elegance. It was about fun, about colors and accessories that made noise and sparkled in the sun. We weren't trying to impress adults. In fact, if an adult told us we looked silly, that only confirmed we were doing something right. Being extra was the whole point. I remember this one afternoon during the school's annual field day. We weren't supposed to bring toys or wear too much jewelry, but that didn't stop us. Jamal wore 5 slap bracelets on one arm, each in a different color. He called them his power bands. He said they gave him speed during the 3-legged race. Tasha had layered 4 scrunchies on one wrist and used another to tie her hoodie around her waist like a belt. I wore mood rings on every finger except my thumbs, and even slipped one onto a necklace chain just for the aesthetic. We looked ridiculous, and we knew it, but we also looked like us. And that's the thing. Every accessory told a story. The flame slap bracelet? I got it at the Scholastic Book Fair after skipping the Goosebumps table just once. The purple velvet scrunchie? Tasha gave it to me after I helped her carry her art project home in the rain. The green mood ring? It was from Kevin, traded during a lunch period when I gave him half my fruit roll-up because he forgot his lunch.
Do kids today have things like that? Items so simple, so cheap, yet filled with memory? We wore our childhood on our sleeves, literally. And we didn't worry about aesthetics or trends or whether it was too much. Because back then, more was better. More meant confidence. More meant joy. More meant, I am here and I'm not afraid to show it. And on those rare days when the teacher didn't confiscate our bracelets or ask us to put our accessories away during class, we felt invincible. We sat with our wrists lined like trophies, our fingers glowing, our ponytails puffed up like cotton candy. We'd sneak peeks at each other's rings and whisper, "Mine's blue now," or "Look, yours turned black. Are you stressed?" Were we stressed? Not really. Not in the way grown-ups talk about stress. We had spelling tests and lunch money drama and the occasional scraped knee from recess tag. But we also had slap bracelets, scrunchies, and mood rings. And somehow those little things made everything feel manageable, even magical. Even now, if I see a mood ring in a novelty shop or a pile of scrunchies at a thrift store, I feel that spark return. Not just the memory, but the sensation of walking into a room and jangling, of being wrapped in color and cotton and tiny pieces of joy that snapped, sparkled, or changed with your feelings. We didn't have to understand fashion. We just had to feel it. And oh, how we did.
There was a certain sound that followed you when you wore baggy jeans in the 90s. Not the soft rustle of regular denim, but a sort of low, dragging whisper that echoed behind you with every step. Like the fabric itself had something to say, some quiet rhythm that matched your stride. And if the bottom edges were frayed, and they almost always were, they'd slap against your sneakers like tiny denim flags fluttering in your wake. We wore those jeans with pride. The bigger, the better. Bootcut wasn't wide enough. We wanted jeans that ballooned out, covered our shoes entirely, and sometimes dragged long enough to gather half the sidewalk as we walked. Do you remember what it felt like to look down and not see your shoelaces? Only denim? That was the sweet spot. That meant you were doing it right. My first pair of truly baggy jeans came from a store in the mall called Jean Machine. I'd seen the older kids wearing them, the ones who already had Discmans and keychains dangling from their belt loops. I begged my mom for a pair for weeks. She kept saying, "They're too big for your size, they'll fall right off." But that was the point, wasn't it? Jeans that looked like you borrowed them from your cooler cousin. Jeans that swayed as you walked. Jeans that practically needed their own zip code. When she finally gave in, we walked into the store and were hit with the scent of denim and cologne, like a rite of passage wrapped in folded Levi's and baggy silver tabs. I found the perfect pair, light wash, ridiculously wide at the legs, and just loose enough at the waist to require one of those woven belts with the silver ring buckle. You remember those belts? You pulled one side through, looped it back, and cinched it until your jeans stayed up, but barely. I wore those jeans until the hems were stained dark gray from dirt and sidewalk grime. And when it rained, oh boy, that was the risk you took. The bottom 6 inches would soak up every puddle, and by the time you got to class, they were heavy enough to drag you down. Still, we didn't care. We'd hang our legs over the chairs and let the hems dry slowly, the scent of damp denim filling the room like some badge of honor. Do you remember how we paired those jeans with chunky skate shoes? Etnies, Osiris, DC, sneakers so big and puffy they looked like marshmallows on our feet. And still, the jeans covered most of them. You could only tell what brand someone was wearing if they sat down or kicked their feet up during lunch. Sometimes I'd take a marker and draw little designs on the inside hem of my jeans, secret graffiti that only I knew about, until the fabric flipped while I walked. There was something comforting in the weight of them, like wearing a blanket around your legs. They didn't clang or squeeze or demand. They gave you room. They made you feel grounded. I used to pretend I was in a music video, Slow motion walking down the hallway, my jeans flaring behind me like smoke. Everyone looked cooler in baggy jeans, even if we tripped over them sometimes during gym class. And yeah, they were impractical, especially when it rained or snowed, but practicality wasn't the point. It was the feeling. The way they made you feel bigger than you were, older, like you belonged to some undefined scene that blended hip-hop, skate culture, and suburban rebellion.
We weren't trying to dress for adults. We were dressing for each other, for the mirror, for those fleeting moments in the cafeteria line when you caught a glimpse of your reflection in the vending machine glass and thought, yeah, I look like me. Tasha used to wear her jeans cuffed once, a little fold to keep them from dragging too far. She said it made her look taller. Jamal never cuffed his, though. His jeans had holes at the knees and bleach spots near the thighs, like some DIY design born from boredom and adventure. He once skated down the hill near the playground, hit a puddle, and his jeans soaked up so much water they sagged halfway off before he reached the bottom. We laughed so hard, but the next day, he wore the same pair. Said they had character now. We wore our jeans to school, to the mall, to the roller rink. The way the denim swayed while we glided across the floor, it was almost theatrical. We'd spin slowly under the colored lights, the jeans flowing out like capes. Even falling looked dramatic, like something out of a music video. You'd tumble, slide on your knees, and the jeans would protect you. Padding made of style. And every so often, there'd be that dreaded announcement from a teacher. You'll need to roll up those pants if you're going outside. It's muddy. We'd groan, fold the wet cuffs up clumsily, and then wait until no one was looking to let them fall again. Wet or not, we wanted that look. We wanted to match the people we saw in music videos, in magazines, on MTV during Total Request Live. They wore their jeans baggy. So did we. And let's not forget the pockets. They were endless, deep enough to carry a Tamagotchi, a packet of Gushers, a folded note from your best friend, and probably a cassette tape if you jammed it sideways. We didn't carry bags. Our pants were bags. If your pockets weren't full of random stuff, were you even living? Some of us added patches or drew little doodles with pens when we were bored. Some tore holes in the back so the fraying looked intentional. And somehow, no matter how destroyed they got, they still looked cool. In fact, the more beat up they were, the better. It meant you lived in them. You made memories in them. One time, during recess, I slipped in the wet grass and landed flat on my back. My jeans were soaked and heavy, but I didn't care. Someone helped me up and said, "Man, that was epic!" I looked down at the mud-streaked fabric, half laughing, and felt proud, like I'd just leveled up in some unspoken 90s fashion game. We didn't call it grunge or skater or urban streetwear. We didn't have names for what we wore. We just wore what felt good, what made us feel seen, would let us belong without saying a word. Baggy jeans were a statement, sure, but more than that, they were a comfort, a style that moved with us, changed with us, got soaked and scuffed and sun-bleached right alongside us. And looking back now, I miss that sound, the soft, dragging whisper of denim on concrete. I miss the way they felt, like wearing freedom, like walking around wrapped in a memory.
There was something magical about hair in the 90s. It wasn't just about how it looked. It was how it made you feel. Powerful, unique, a little wild maybe, even a little rebellious. Whether you sculpted it with layers of crunchy gel or decorated it with plastic butterflies, your hair told a story, and no two stories were ever quite the same. Some mornings, I would wake up and stare into the mirror with no plan at all. My hair was usually a little messy from sleep, flattened on one side, fluffed out on the other. I'd run my fingers through it and decide, then and there, whether it would be a gel day or a let it fly free kind of day. There wasn't always a pattern, just a feeling, just the quiet voice of a kid choosing who they wanted to be that day. Do you remember how thick that blue or green hair gel used to be? The kind that came in a clear tub and smelled vaguely of watermelon or plastic beach toys? I'd scoop a dollop with my fingers and smear it through my hair like I was preparing for battle. I'd spike it up into awkward little peaks that never quite stood straight, but that didn't matter. Spikes were cool. Even if they leaned a little to the side or flattened by lunchtime, for those first few hours, you felt unstoppable. Sometimes I'd slick everything back, trying to look like one of the cool kids from a boy band on MTV. Or I'd do the middle part flip, the curtain style, letting the hair fall over my forehead just right, at least in theory. In practice, it always took a little too much effort and never quite fell the way it did in magazines. But back then, we weren't aiming for perfection. We were aiming for fun, for self-expression. And then there were the butterfly clips. Oh, those butterfly clips. They came in pastel colors and glittery translucent plastic shaped like stars and flowers and, yes, butterflies with little wings that fluttered when you moved. Every girl I knew, and some of us boys too, when we felt brave enough, had at least a handful of them in a drawer or a pouch or clipped onto the edge of a backpack. They weren't just accessories. They were little explosions of color and joy that turned a messy head of hair into a masterpiece. I used to watch my friend Angie line them up across her head like a crown, zigzagging from one ear to the other, each clip catching the light like a tiny jewel. She never wore just one or two. It had to be 6, 8, maybe even 10. Her motto was, if you're gonna clip, then clip like you mean it. I'd help her sometimes before school, handing her the next color while she twisted and pinned her hair into mini buns and sections. Some days she went for symmetry. Other days, total chaos. But every time, she looked like a walking Lisa Frank notebook. And then there were the days we just let our hair be wild. We'd come in from recess with our heads full of static electricity, hair puffed out in every direction. We didn't run to the bathrooms to fix it. We laughed. We owned it. There was a kind of freedom in not caring if your hair was perfect. Wind-blown hair was part of the uniform. Dirt and sweat from the playground were badges of honor. We'd flip our heads upside down and back up just to feel the air rush past and let our strands fly like we were in a shampoo commercial. I remember this one day during a particularly hot spring afternoon when none of us could be bothered to do anything neat with our hair. It was a gel boycott, as we called it. Everyone came to school with wild, unstyled hair. Curls, tangles, frizz, flat parts, whatever it was naturally, that's what it stayed. And it was beautiful. We looked like a pack of kids straight out of a summer camp movie, sun-touched and happy and unbothered. Do you remember those headbands with teeth that dug into your scalp just a little too hard? Or the stretchy combs that snapped over your head like magic? I do. I remember trying one of those zigzag headbands, hoping to look like the cool teens on a Nickelodeon show, but it always pulled too tight and gave me a headache by third period. Still, I wore it for as long as I could stand it. That was the thing about 90s hair. Comfort came second. Style came first. Scrunchies were everywhere. Velvet ones, neon ones, tie-dye. Some people wore them on their wrists, ready to pull their hair up into a ponytail at a moment's notice. Others layered them over buns for extra flair. They matched outfits. They completed looks. And when you lost your favorite one, it felt like losing a tiny part of yourself. Even boys had their phases. I remember when frosted tips were the rage, and a few brave kids came to school with bleached streaks at the front of their hair. You could almost hear the collective gasp when someone walked into the classroom like that for the first time. A hush, followed by a chorus of, "Whoa!" and then the unspoken agreement that they had just become the coolest person in the room. We didn't always have access to salons or fancy products. A lot of our hairstyles came from experimentation, from copying something we saw in a magazine or a music video, or from watching an older cousin do something cool and deciding to try it ourselves. There were mistakes, sure. I once tried to cut my own bangs with safety scissors. It didn't go well, but even that was part of the charm. Hair grew back,
Style was temporary, expression was forever. And there was always that one kid who showed up with hair dyed bright red or purple, usually with Kool-Aid. It would stain your hands and forehead, and your parents might get mad, but for a week or two, you'd feel like a superhero with a secret power. I never dared to dye mine, but I envied those who did. They were the brave ones, the ones who took fashion into their own hands, literally. Looking back, I realize we weren't trying to look like adults. That was never the goal. In fact, if anything, we were avoiding it. We didn't want sleek, polished hair. We wanted volume, color, movement, texture, a little chaos. We wanted our outsides to match the wild, imaginative, bubbling energy we felt inside. And hair? Hair was the fastest way to say, this is who I am today. Whether we gelled it into gravity-defying shapes, clipped it with neon butterflies, tied it up in scrunchies, or just let it roam free like a lion's mane, every strand carried a piece of our personality. It wasn't about looking put together. It was about looking like ourselves. And honestly, I miss that. I miss the joy of waking up and deciding, without rules or trends or pressure, how to wear my hair that day. I miss the smell of cheap hair gel, the sound of butterfly clips snapping into place, the feeling of wind blowing through a head of untamed curls. Mostly, I miss how something as simple as your hair could make you feel like a star in your own story.
There was something electric about watching MTV in the 90s. It wasn't just a music channel. It was our window into another world. A world where everyone looked impossibly cool, impossibly bold, impossibly themselves. We didn't just watch music videos. We studied them. We memorized the way our favorite artists moved, what they wore, how they wore it. And then we tried, desperately, enthusiastically, to make it our own. Do you remember that moment, sitting on the floor too close to the screen, eyes wide, volume just low enough not to wake anyone else in the house? Do you remember the way the videos felt like glimpses into a teenage universe far more glamorous than our own? Every clip was a runway show, a costume party, a how-to guide for being seen, being noticed, being someone. I remember the first time I saw TLC's Waterfalls video. The loose-fitting clothes, the baggy jeans, the overalls, the statement colors. They weren't just outfits, they were declarations. I went to school the next day with my overall strap unbuttoned on purpose, a white tee underneath, and my friend let me a fake gold chain just to complete the look. I felt taller somehow, braver, like I could dance down the hallway and people might actually watch. And it wasn't just the big names. Even the lesser-known bands, those one-hit wonders, had an influence. One week we were dressing like Nirvana in flannel and ripped jeans. Then 2 days later we were copying the crisp, futuristic vibes from a Janet Jackson video, wrapping cords from old headphones around our wrists like bracelets and using aluminum foil to decorate shoelaces. Our creativity knew no bounds. The real trick was having the right timing. You had to be in front of the TV when the video aired. There was no replay button, no YouTube, no screen captures. If you missed it, you had to wait. So we'd sit for hours watching video after video, hoping for our favorite to come on again. And when it did, we'd squint at the screen trying to figure out, was that a mesh shirt? Was that a plaid skirt over pants? Were they really wearing sunglasses indoors? Yes, they were. And so, the next time we hit the mall or begged our parents to take us to Target or Kmart, we went in with a mission. Find the pieces that looked just like what we saw on MTV, or at least close enough that we could pretend. A neon windbreaker like the one in a Backstreet Boys video, a pair of white sneakers like Britney's, or maybe something weird and mysterious like what Beck wore, vintage-looking sweaters 2 sizes too big. We were kids, but MTV made us feel like stylists, curators. Our bedrooms became dressing rooms, our hallways catwalks. Our imaginations exploded with every frame. I remember standing in front of the mirror for what felt like hours trying to perfect a dance move I saw in an Aaliyah video. I'd wear a bandana tied just above my eyebrows, my baggy pants low on the waist,
and twist a hoodie over one shoulder just to mimic that effortless, asymmetrical look. My sister was obsessed with Gwen Stefani. Every time No Doubt released a new video, she'd run to her room, throw open her drawers, and create an outfit inspired by what she had just seen. Crop tops made out of cut-up t-shirts, glittery stickers by the eyes, hair twisted into tiny buns. She'd walk into the living room with a serious face, like she was stepping onto a soundstage. No one laughed. We got it. We were all trying to be someone we admired for a few hours. Even when we couldn't copy the exact look, we copied the feeling, the confidence, the swagger. Music videos made us feel like our style mattered, that we had something to say with what we wore, that even if our jeans came from a discount rack and our shirts were hand-me-downs, we could still transform them with a little attitude and imagination. Do you remember how many looks we tried and failed to pull off? I do. I once tried to replicate a look from a Boyz II Men video. Long trench coat, tight turtleneck, dress shoes with white socks. Let's just say it didn't go over well at school. But I kept the coat. I wore it on rainy days and pretended I was walking slow-mo through a music video of my own. Raindrops bouncing off the shoulders, soundtrack in my head. And that's the thing. We weren't just copying. We were playing, exploring. We were learning who we were by trying on who we might want to be. Sometimes that meant wearing sunglasses at night, because that's what Usher did. Sometimes it meant layering 3 necklaces over a tank top because Destiny's Child made it look effortless. Sometimes it meant getting weird stares at school. But we didn't care. We had MTV on our side. Our school hallways became stages, our best friends backup dancers. Someone would shout the first line of a new hit, and 3 of us would spin around in choreographed precision. It was messy, out of sync, completely ridiculous, but we meant it. We were creating our own music video moments, one hallway at a time. And I miss that. I miss how music videos didn't just entertain us. They lit something inside us. They gave us permission to express, to exaggerate, to stand a little taller, even if it was just in our minds. They taught us that style wasn't about money or brand names. It was about how you wore it, how you carried yourself, the confidence in a sideways hat, the mystery in a flipped collar, the rhythm in a rolled-up sleeve. Today, I still catch myself hearing a 90s song and remembering what I wore the day the video came out. I still see flashes of outfits in my mind, snapshots of colors and shapes that once meant everything to us. MTV didn't just give us music. It gave us a language, a way to say, I'm here, I'm young, I'm bold, and I'm not afraid to try. And those outfits, those experiments, they weren't mistakes. They were memories.
There was a special kind of magic about the school dance in the 90s. Maybe it was the music, blasting from the speakers like the heartbeat of the entire school. Or maybe it was the chance to dress up and show the world who you thought you were, or who you wanted to be. Do you remember those moments? Standing under the dimmed gym lights, wearing an outfit that felt like it had a story all its own? Did you feel, like I did, that you were the coolest kid in the world? Back then, style was our armor and our spotlight, all at once. For that one night, the neon colors, the oversized windbreakers, the flannel shirts layered just right, and even the overalls with one strap undone became more than clothes. They became badges of confidence, symbols of our small triumphs in the daily battles of growing up. Even if, looking back now, those clothes might seem a bit wild or even like costumes, in those moments, they were exactly what we needed to feel seen and celebrated. I still remember slipping on my favorite pair of baggy jeans, the ones I had to fold at the hems so they wouldn't drag too much on the floor. My neon windbreaker zipped up just enough to show the graphic tee beneath, the one I copied straight from a music video the week before. The feeling was electric, like stepping into a world where nothing else mattered but the music and the friends around me. Did you ever spend hours getting ready, trying to perfect your hair with gel or carefully placing those butterfly clips just right? I sure did. My friends and I would huddle in bathrooms, helping each other fix our outfits and nervously practicing dance moves we had seen on MTV. The excitement was almost too much to contain, and the scent of hairspray mixed with the faint smell of popcorn from the concessions still lingers in my memory. And then there was the music itself, the DJ spinning all the hits we loved, from the upbeat pop anthems to the slow songs where everyone paired off, some awkwardly, some confidently. It was the soundtrack to our youth, and every beat seemed to carry a promise that we were part of something bigger, even if just for one night. Did you ever notice how the dance floor became a place where all the unspoken rules of school seemed to fade away, where the radical, the cool, and the colorful all mixed together without judgment, where the same kids who teased you in the hallways could be the ones cheering you on as you showed off a move you had practiced endlessly? It was a rare kind of freedom, wrapped up in flashing lights and the scent of teenage dreams. I remember the nervous thrill of asking someone to dance, my hands a little shaky, my heart pounding louder than the speakers, or the simple joy of laughing with friends, arms linked, sharing stories between songs. Those moments weren't just about clothes or music. They were about connection, about belonging. Even now, when I think back to that night, I smile. Because despite how silly or over the top our outfits may seem today, they were an expression of hope and joy. They were a way of saying, I'm here, I'm alive, and I'm ready for what comes next. We didn't need perfection. We needed to be ourselves, flaws, quirks, and all. So, do you ever find yourself longing for that feeling? That mix of excitement, awkwardness, and pure happiness? I do. And sometimes when a 90s song comes on the radio, I can almost hear the echoes of that dance, feel the warmth of those friendships, and see the flashing lights reflecting off a neon windbreaker. At the end of this story, I hope you carry a little piece of that night with you. The courage to express yourself boldly, the joy of shared moments with friends, and the simple reminder that style was never just about what we wore. It was about how it made us feel inside. Thank you for walking down this memory lane with me. Remember, the coolest kid in the world is always the one who wears their heart on their sleeve, who dances like no one's watching, and who embraces every moment like it's the best one yet.